The following two reincarnation stories are about a young boy called Desmond Sanderson, who lived in Coventry in England, and Julie Tomlinson, who lived in Northamptonshire, England. Desmond Sanderson. One day Desmond was playing with his toys and casually said to his mother, "You know, Mummy, before I came to you, I went to Auntie Ruth, but I didn't stay there very long." His mother looked shocked by his comments because her sister-in-law Ruth 10 years previously had given birth to a stillborn baby, and to make matters worse, at the same time had lost her husband in a car accident. She never really recovered from the shock and could never talk about it to the rest of the family, so it was never discussed. Because of this, her family never talked about the sad period in her life. So how did her son know about her sister-in-law's fatal pregnancy? Young Desmond continued with this story, telling his mother what it felt like to be in a womb. He said it was very warm inside Auntie Ruth's tummy and was quite bouncy, and he used to turn around a lot. He said that he was happy and comfortable, but very wet, and he was always sleepy. But one day I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I was not with Aunt Ruth anymore. His mother asked him where he was, and he said that he went back home, of course, and said it in a matter-of-fact manner. His mother then asked Desmond where his home was before he was with Aunt Ruth, and he said, "I was in a place with a nice field with other girls and boys, and went back with Robert and Samantha." Over the following weeks, he would talk about what it was like, and that he had special friends at home before he went to Aunt Ruth. Robert and Samantha were bigger people who looked after the children, and they were all together and played lots of games. He spoke about boat races and would wear special robes for the occasion. There were lots of flowers on the boats, and they seemed to move without any sails, as there was no wind. He said we all had to sing, and on occasions important people would come and play music for them. He said he never got any sweets, but they would eat fruit which was juicy. It would eat a type of plum which had no stone in the centre. He said that some of the sick people got to eat fruit to make them feel better after recently passing over. He also said that there were many pets, and the children got to play with dogs and rabbits, and said he got to play with a small green and yellow bird which went with him everywhere and was with him all the time. Most of Desmond's stories seem to take place before he went to his Aunt Ruth as well as after. He said he has vivid memories of saying goodbye to his little bird before going to Aunt Ruth, and then seeing his bird again after he left her and returned home. He also remembers being called away from his permanent home when he was about to go to his present mother, Beverly. He said to his mother, "I knew I was coming to you and Daddy because that is what they told me." Judging by what Desmond had been telling his mother, it appears that nothing ever happened by chance and everything is planned. He described to his mother what it was like to play in the water where the children didn't need to swim because they never sank and they never got wet. They would all float on top of the water, and if they went under the water, it never went in their eyes, up their nose or in their mouth. When they got out, the water droplets would just fall off of them. He also said that the water played music to them, but there were no words. If they picked up the water in their hands, it would go tinkle tinkle. As well as sounds, the water had colours in it, like little rainbows, but mostly there was just one colour at a time. The water was soft to touch and did not make your clothes wet. When they got out of the water, they were instantly dry as if it was the most natural thing. He said that he'd been to school, and his mother thought he meant play school that he'd just started. But Desmond said, "No, the big children's school that I went to back home with all his friends." He said they attended school and learned many things, and the teachers were like their guardians, and they all lived in the school. Judging by what her son was saying, it appears the school was like a village, but was not strict like a boarding school, and was more like a holiday camp where they were taught lessons. He could not remember what he was taught, but he does remember there being lots of books. His mother has never spoken to her sister-in-law about what her son had told her, and feels that she now had the child that Ruth was meant to have. Ruth has no children of her own, and if she told her, she may think that Desmond is really her child. As Desmond got older, his stories got less and less, and over time it will probably not remember at all, which often happens when children talk about past lives, or even life between life as Desmond remembered. However, every now and then a son will come out with an odd comment. There was one particular incident that happened when they were in the garden, and Desmond was about 5 years old. She was showing her son how to plant flower seeds, and he said he used to make his own singing flowers when he lived with his friends. She asked him what he meant by singing flowers, and he replied, the flowers with the music coming out of them. He was taught that all you had to do was think of the flower step by step, and the flower would appear. First the stem would materialize, followed by the leaves and petals, and the colour of the flower would correspond with the colour you willed it to be. He could will any colour that he wanted, but the flowers he had back home were a different shape to the flowers in the present garden. Just like the water, the flowers gave off a sound where the petals gave off a type of music. His parents believed that a child so young could not have had such things in his head unless he had somehow experienced them. And how was he able to describe going to his Aunt Ruth first before coming to his present mother? If she had not lost a baby, that might have put a different light on his story. His parents felt certain that their son had experienced another life, albeit in the spirit world, and those memories stayed with him in his first 4 years on Earth. His memories seemed to slowly fade when he started school, other than the occasional remark. One theory could be that in school, his brain starts to take in new forms of knowledge, and his brain has to deal with new facts and figures which will slowly block out his past life memories. Judging by what Desmond describes, tells us that things work very differently in spiritual reality. Everything there is vivid and much more alive. What we see responds to what we are thinking, and they have all the time they need, because time does not exist in the spirit world, where the inner state of individuals are reflected in their surroundings and where all life originates from and is sustained by a high frequency. Julie Tomlinson, Northamptonshire, England. By the time Julie had reached the age of 2, she was able to draw pictures, but not of flowers, houses or people, but for some strange reason drew witches. When her grandmother asked what the drawings were, knowing full well that they resembled witches, her granddaughter replied, "With me, of course, when I was a witch." Her grandmother was surprised that her granddaughter had even heard the word witch, and where had she learned about it, because the family had never ever discussed witches, and Julie was not old enough to have read about them. But what surprised her Nana most was the speed in which she could draw them. From the moment a pencil was put into her hand, she started drawing images of witches which seemed to come out automatically. The drawings were extremely detailed for someone so young. The drawings had a distinctive style, unlike the rough scribbling many children would make. The drawings looked more symbolic than ordinary sketching. Even when she included trees and flowers, they appeared to have a strange appearance, rather than drawing them as they actually looked. The witches were fully drawn, and in perfect detail. Judy said that when she lived before, she liked to drink blackbird's blood, and much to her Nana's horror said that the blood tasted sweet. There were even drawings of blackbirds where some of them were flying whilst the others were on the ground. But the blackbirds on the ground were not drawn as a child would have done, but were lying on their backs or on their sides, obviously indicating that they were dead. This was obviously connected to a comment about drinking their blood. Her Nana was totally repelled by her remarks and could not bear the thought of doing such a thing. She could not imagine anything so ghastly. When her parents found out about what their daughter was drawing and what she was saying, they thought it better not to discuss it any further. Fearing she would make other gruesome comments, they thought it was better not to know, or better still, would eventually grow out of it. Julie Tomlinson was born in Wellingsborough, which was a small town in Northamptonshire in the East Midlands of England. It is interesting to note that many centuries ago there was a strong following of witch cults in that part of England. There are many records of witches being burnt at the stake. However, this was not normal procedure in the town, as many of the witches were accepted as part of life in the community, and were generally left alone to practice their witchcraft. The few that would have been burned at the stake would have been accused of hurting a member of the public. The witches were allowed to practice in an area that is known as Sheep Street, at the rear of the Old Hind Hotel. One of the most interesting but disturbing drawings by Julie shows an odd-looking tree in a field with a witch standing next to a blazing fire. At the centre of the fire there appears to be a small naked baby. Her grandmother was confused by this horrific drawing, as her granddaughter has shown a fondness for babies and was often seen caressing her own baby dolls. She could not understand why she'd drawn this. Julie told her that in her previous life she liked to go into the woods at night and light big fires, and added to what her granddaughter had said, sheep were somehow involved in the ceremony, possibly as some sort of sacrifice. Julie Tomlinson was certain that she'd lived a previous life as a witch, and after what she had drawn and told her grandmother, there seemed no reason to doubt her. Her grandmother said that she did not learn any of this strange behaviour from her family. It goes without saying that if Julie Tomlinson had not lived a previous life as a witch, she was a seriously disturbed child. How did she know about the subject at such a young age?